both for being here. I want to start with the status of the lease negotiations with the state of Hawaii. In 1964, the United States military was awarded a 65-year lease for 23,000 acres of Hawaii state lands for $1. We are now coming up on the potential renewal of that lease, and I think we're all in agreement that the people of the state of Hawaii are entitled to a fair deal on all leasing moving forward. Many of these leases do expire in 2029. That includes Pohakaloa Training Area, Kahuku Training Area, Makua Valley. And I think where we are all landing is that promoting our national security and treating the citizens of the state of Hawaii with fairness and respect are not mutually exclusive. In fact, at this point, they're completely intertwined. So, Secretary, could you just give me an update on the status of the negotiations?
Certainly, Senator Schatz. As you know, we have two environmental impact statements that are underway right now that are relevant to looking at the lease agreements, and those, I believe, will be completed at the end of this year. And then the next step would be for, the Army to be looking at what we would come forward with as a proposal for what the final agreement would look like. And that record of decision won't come forward until 2025. So we have some time to be talking with, when I was last in Hawaii, I met with Governor Green, had a very productive discussion with him. I met with leaders from the Native Hawaiian community. And we are very much now trying to engage, as the environmental impact statements work their way through the process, we are trying to engage with all of the different stakeholders in Hawaii to help us understand what the shape of an arrangement might look like.
Thank you. General McConville, we all agree Hawaii is entitled to the same guarantee of homeland defense as every other state. Our Army's IBCS expands the line of sight for defensive launchers to better our odds of intercepting missile threats. Are there considerations for how the IBCS program could apply to the defense of Hawaii?
Well, right now is a potential consideration. I'm not aware of anything right now that put IBCS, but as you said, it's a game-changing technology that allows us to integrate sensors and shooters for air and missile defense, and that does give us that capability. And if we lay out that requirement, then we can take a look at it.
There's a lot of talk about Guam and the defense of Guam. I completely support that. I want to just remind everybody that Hawaii is the homeland. Hawaii is not an insular area. It is the 50th state. It is the home of Indo-PACOM. It is the home of U.S. Army Pacific. It is the home of Marine Forces Pacific. And even if it's difficult, even if it's expensive, we still need to have, and I get that HDRH, was abandoned, and perhaps for legitimate reasons, but I just want to flag for you that as we're gaming out our scenarios, that we are focusing right now on the kind of Central and Western Pacific, and then the continent. And Hawaii deserves protection too. On recruiting, just following up, Secretary, on what Senator Moran talked about, you're going to fall short, and I think you are doing what is necessary to try not to fall short. But I think it's fair to say that the Pacific is the priority area, and although I know you're kind of pre-decisional here, I'd like you to kind of talk at least in conceptual terms about how you're going to absorb some reduction in the number of Army soldiers in a way that is consistent with our Indo-Pacific strategy.
Certainly, and I'll maybe draw again a little bit on what I said before. One, I think it's important to realize that the actual number of soldiers that are at places like 25th ID, at Fort Riley, for example, at Fort Bragg, at Fort Hood,
or Camp Humphreys.
Exactly, is below the number of authorizations that are on the books. So we have the soldiers that we already have. what we're trying to do is look at, as we think about the new kinds of force structure that we need to build, as the chief mentioned, the multi-domain task forces, the indirect fire protection capabilities, a lot of the integrated air and missile defenses, for example, we're looking at where can we shed maybe some types of structure that was very useful for COIN and counterterrorism, but we don't need as much of right now, to make room for new structure. And the way we've gone about that, among other things, is we've looked at, as I said, what we're calling people optimization. So there's places where we can just kind of thin out across the whole force structure. And then we're also looking at the types of units that are maybe underutilized. Those are obviously candidates for elimination, for example. So, I think all of this will be spread around our major installations. And we're, national defense strategy requirements are primary. We've got to be able to have the readiness levels and the structure that we need to execute the strategy, and certainly paying attention to the Indo-Pacific is core to that.
Thank you.
Senator Murphy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you both for being here today. Mr. Chairman, I wanted to take